Good morning, boys and girls. How are you? Good morning, boys and girls. How are you? Good morning, boys and girls. Good morning, boys and girls. Good morning, boys and girls. How are you? Grammy Blue is just fine, and welcome to Story Time with Grammy Blue. I am excited again, as I usually am, to read stories to you. Today, I'm going to share a story that is a legend. And a legend is a story that is shared from generation to generation, and it's based on historical facts. So, here we go. The Legend of Africana was written by Dorothy W. Robinson and illustrated by Herbert Temple. Now, Grammy Blue won't be able to answer your questions, so maybe you would like to have mommy or daddy to sit with you, or someone that you love and trust that can answer your questions as I read the story. Long, long ago, Mother Nature built a beautiful country to hold all the special and wonderful things that she liked best. This land was called Africa. The sun was king over all of Africa, and the earth was his queen. The sun smiled down on his kingdom constantly with the warmth and love, and the earth gave forth an abundance of green living things, and beneath the earth, Mother Nature had stored a treasury of riches of gold and silver and diamonds. For the task of caring for this beautiful country, Mother Nature chose Prince Ayura, the Prince of Freedom. Prince Ayura had the courage of the lion and the strength of the elephant and the swiftness of the gazelle. He was as black as the earth from which life springs. Prince Ayura loved Africa with its wide, sweeping deserts, the snow-capped mountains, the grassy plains, and the dense forest. Prince Ayura loved every growing thing. The funny baboa tree was no less important to him than the giant mahogany. The vines and bamboo shoots were no less beautiful than the brilliantly colored flowers. Ayura saw to it that all of the different animals were free to roam throughout the land as they chose, and were free to live in their favorite places. The Sun King and the Earth Queen were very pleased with Ayura and the way in which he cared for the country and its creatures. So they decided to reward him his faithful service with the gift of their daughter, Africana. Africana had a unique beauty which matched her homeland. Her skin was as smooth and as black as the wood from the ebony tree, and her teeth were like the ivory of the elephant's tusk. The birds gave her their gift of song, and the brooks taught her to laugh. She had the serenity of the mountains and the gracefulness of the gazelle. The rain kissed her head and caused her hair to spring into soft, springy black curls. Warmth and radiance came from her father, the sun, and love of life from her mother, the earth. Ayura loved Africana dearly, for she was a perfect companion and helpmate. Together they lived in harmony, with the land capturing its rhythm with songs, drum beats, and the dance. And Africa grew richer and more beautiful with each passing year. In another far off land, an evil spirit, Takata, heard of this paradise. He heard of the gold and silver which was hidden in the earth, and of the magnificent trees made of strange and beautiful wood, and of the many different animals which roamed freely throughout the land. Now, the Takata was in truth a destroyer. He became more and more covetous of all the things which nature had created, and determined that he should have these things for himself. He said, "It is not right that nature should have all these things to glorify herself. I am more important than nature. Therefore, all these things should be mine. The diamonds and the gold of the earth should be placed upon my own neck and arms, and they should be kept within my vaults, so that all may hear of my great wealth. The beautiful wood of the trees should be reshaped to serve my own needs, for all to see that I too am a great creator. The heads of the animals should be placed upon the walls of my home, so that all may know of my great power to destroy." So the evil Takata, icy cold and gray, traveled to this land of Africa. When Takata entered the land, Prince Ayura sensed his presence. For everything became strangely cold. A fog began to settle over the land, shutting out the sun. The birds began to scatter to the shelter of the trees, and the monkeys began to chatter and screech wildly in fear. "Who is it, and what do you want?" Prince Ayura called out. "I am a distant traveler," the cunning Takata answered very meekly. "Please let me rest for a short while, for I am truly weary." Prince Ayura, who was very kind, allowed the stranger to enter and offered him food and drink. After Takata had eaten and rested, he turned to Prince Ayura and said, "You have indeed been very kind to me. I have a special fruit from my land. This fruit which I bring far away, it is a fruit of love and brotherhood. Please accept it as a token of my gratitude." Prince Ayura, not suspecting that a powerful drug had been placed within the fruit, tasted it and immediately fell into a deep, paralyzing sleep. At once, Takata began to break open the earth and dig up the treasures hidden there. He took a great axe and began to cut down the mighty trees, and he killed all the animals that he saw. When he had ravaged the land and he was looking around to see if he had overlooked anything, the beautiful Africana appeared. When Takata saw Africana, the most precious treasure of all, he bound her in chains and took her far away to his own country to do his bidding as a slave. That means she had no rights. When Africana awoke in this strange country, she found herself in a miserable hut. She was weighed down by strong, heavy chains and was surrounded by huge sacks containing strange white plants. The sacks were stacked from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. Also in the hut was a huge grinding mill. It became Africana's task to grind the plants from the sacks into small, glittering coins. As she went about her strenuous work each day, lifting the heavy sacks up to the grinding mill and turning the huge wheel to spin the sacks of coins, she longed for her Prince Ayura and longed to be back in the land of her birth. Each night, when Takata came to take away the coins, Africana would beg for her freedom, and each night would be denied. Many years passed on this way until one night Africana, as was her custom, asked, "O powerful one, oh, please let me go, for I fear I shall die from these heavy chains that bind me." "I would let you go," answered Takata, "but I cannot. You look too different from me. When people see the blackness of your skin, they will know that you are the sun's daughter and that I have stolen you from the land of your birth." "O mighty one," pleaded Africana, "they will not know, for I shall hide the color of my skin." When she spoke these words, a vine of tough and sinewy fiber sprang up, making a complete fence around the hut. But Africana, unaware of this, was busy mixing a paste to hide her color. When the evil master returned the next night, she said to him, "Look, I have hidden the color of my skin. May I go free now?" But Takata was not ready to free her, and he said, "But you still are too different from me. If I let you go free, I am afraid that everyone will still know that nature loves you." "Perhaps it is my curly hair that makes me different from you," she answered. "I will change it." And upon these words promptly sprang up another vine, thicker and stronger than the one before, which rapidly covered the entire hut. But Africana took no notice. She mixed a concoction and rubbed it into her hair. Gradually, her hair lost its curliness so that it hung lank and lifeless around her face, just like his. See the change? When Takata came back the next night, he was still unwilling to free her. "Your gift of song and dance will show your great love of life," he told her. She said, "I will learn to be exactly as you are." Africana replied eagerly, "I will forget that I am the daughter of the sun and the earth, and the sister of the wind and the rain, and the friend of all the creatures of my homeland. I will become exactly as you are." But as she spoke, a whole forest of bushes, vines, and hideous trees sprang up and completely fenced in the hut. The earth began to crumble into tiny pieces as rain fell, soaking into the earth, making a sticky, impassable swamp and a swamp of mud around the hut. Africana paid no heed. She studied her master carefully and copied all of his ways and all of his habits. She looked upon all of her own talents and gifts of things of evil to be put away from her. From morning until night, she practiced the ways of her master. At last, she hardly knew herself. When the master came again to the hut, he saw that she had now become very much like him, and he decided that she was ready to be let out of prison. He unlocked the chains and said, "You can go." And he smiled craftily as he departed from the hut. "Go and come as you please," he said. Africana was filled with such happiness that she wanted to run and shout with joy, but she remembered to dance with great restraint and to let her song of thanksgiving come out in thin little trickles, for she did not wish to lose her new found freedom. She opened the door of the hut and eagerly stepped out into the fresh air and sunlight. She walked up to the forest of vines encircling the hut and tried to part them in order to get through. But the vines closed in thickly. They began to reach out and lash at her. Becoming frightened, she ran to a place where she thought she saw an opening, but she stepped into a deep mud hole. She pulled herself up and ran desperately to another place, but thorns torn her hands and pulled at her clothes. She tried and tried, running from one place to another, but try as she would, she could not get out, and the forest of vines had trapped her completely. She ran back to the hut and closed the door, shutting out the forest. Despairing of ever becoming free, she sank to the floor and cried mournfully. Meanwhile, in the land of Africa, Prince Ayura, drugged by the fruit he had tasted, had been lying asleep for hundreds of years. When the drug wore off, he awakened and found that Africa had been torn asunder. The forest had been nearly devastated. The animals had almost all disappeared, and a cold wind still blew over the land. When he heard that Africana had been captured and stolen away, Ayura set out for the far-off country in which she was held captive. When he reached the forest which imprisoned her, he tried to cut his way through the places where he saw an opening. The branches lashed out back at him. An impenetrable wall of vines closed up tighter. He stepped back and studied the forest, trying to think of a way to free Africana. He decided to build a fire, and soon flames swept the whole forest. When the flames died, Ayura saw that only the leaves had been burned. Bare vines and barren tree limbs still remained. Now, Prince Ayur was able to see clearly the great task before him. He saw that the ground was full of huge mud holes and would give way the moment he stepped on it. He could not uproot the vines until the earth had been made firm enough to stand on. So he returned to Africa and piled up tons of rich, solid earth and came back to the prison forest. He filled in the gaping holes with a strong foundation of dirt from his beloved homeland, Africa. He traced the largest vine through the tangled forest until he found its roots, which he began to dig up. As Ayura dug at the roots, Africana inside the hut began to feel her skin. She found it to be caked with the paste with which she had tried to hide her skin color. She quickly began to rub it away. She rubbed away at this pale mass until she could see once more the rich black color of her own skin. She rejoiced in her own birthright once more. The roots in Prince Ayura's hands gave way and the vine disappeared. This happened again and again. Each time Ayura pulled at one of the roots, Africana would rediscover a little more of her true self, and the root and vine would disappear. Finally, all of the vines surrounding the hut were gone, leaving only the forest. Africana was now able to see not just one, but several paths in which she would lead to her freedom. Gathering her courage, she chose one of the paths and ran among the forest trees. And then, seeing Prince Ayura, she did not stop or look back until she was free at last. Ayura and Africana immediately set off to look for Takata, who had imprisoned Africana and harmed their land. When they heard a groaning sound come, a huge cave, they ran toward the sound and found Takata crushed beneath an avalanche of coins. Ayura and Africana saw that he had harmed himself even more than he had harmed them, and they suddenly felt very sorry for him. They tried to pull him from beneath the crushing weight, but he was so afraid of being parted from his wealth that he clung steadfastly and tried to kick them away. This caused an even greater downpour of coins that completely buried him. He didn't want to give up the money. Seeing that Takata would not be free, Ayura and Africana ran from the cave just as another avalanche of coins rained down. This last downpour filled the entrance and sealed off the cavern. The evil Takata was locked forever in his own cavern of coins. Now, Africana and Prince Ayura saw a strange sight. It was very curious. It was a curious thing. The evil one had imprisoned many people who had come from different lands with their own special gifts and their own special talents. But they too had changed themselves to please Takata. Each person in the land had become exactly like every other person. They were all the same shape, the same size, they spoke the same words, and thought the same thoughts. Ayura called out to all these prisoners, "The evil Takata is no longer your master. He has become a prisoner of his own greed." Suddenly, all the people began to change back into their own true, very special selves. They ran from their prisons, rejoicing in their freedom. When they looked about them, they began to see the beauty in all the wonderful variety of peoples, the different names, the different colors, the different voices, and the different ways of living. Ayura and Africana taught the people that all these differences were necessary to make one great rhythm of life. They told the people that it was as nature had planned it long ago in that special place called Africa. The Legend of Africana. Wow, that was a powerful story. Oh my goodness. Well, what was your favorite part of the story? Might have to take a little while to think about that. That's quite a story. Well, I think my favorite part of the story is where everyone recognized their own beauty and their own gifts and their own talents. Not only that, but they were free. It's important to have choice. If you have no choice, then everybody is the same. And I don't believe that Mother Nature created us to all be the same. Our differences are important. And we need everyone's thoughts and talents and gifts to make the world go around. Thank you, boys and girls, for spending time with Grammy Blue. And remember, you are a winner. And Grammy Blue loves you.